The music stopped. Over 100 people stared at me in complete silence. I stood in the centre of my sister's lavish 21st birthday party, holding the DJ's microphone with shaking hands. This was it. The moment I had been planning for weeks. The moment everything would either fall apart or finally come together. My mother's face had drained of all colour. My father looked like he wanted to kill me, his jaw clenched so tight I could see a vein throbbing in his temple. And Chloe, my perfect golden child sister, stood frozen next to her 3-tier cake in her designer dress, her mouth hanging open in shock. I raised my phone, connected it to the sound system, and pressed play. My mother's voice exploded through the speakers, crystal clear for everyone to hear. We returned it. Turns out we got quite a bit back, just enough for an extra champagne tower for Chloe's party. I watched as understanding slowly dawned on the faces of the influencers, the friends, the family members who had gathered to celebrate my sister. This was it. This was the moment everything would either fall apart or finally come together. Before I tell you what happened next, if you're invested in this story, if you want to know how someone like me found the courage to stand up after being pushed down for so long, please hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me if you've ever had to make an impossible choice between your own survival and keeping the peace. Because what I'm about to share with you is the story of how I went from being the forgotten daughter to the one who couldn't be silenced anymore. Let me take you back to where this all began 6 months before that party, to the night I realised my family didn't just neglect me. They were actively using my suffering to fuel their own happiness. It was a Tuesday evening in late March when the pain became unbearable. I had been diagnosed with spinal cancer 18 months earlier, right after I turned 23. The tumour was wrapped around my vertebrae like a vengeful snake, and the treatment was as brutal as the disease itself. Chemotherapy had ravaged my body, leaving me gaunt and weak, my once thick brown hair now growing back in patches. But the worst part wasn't the physical pain. It was coming home to a house where I was treated like an inconvenient houseguest rather than a daughter fighting for her life. That particular Tuesday, the pain medication I relied on to function had run out the day before. I had been counting the hours until my mother Brenda would pick up my refill from the pharmacy. She had insisted on being the one to handle my medications, claiming it was too complicated for me to manage in my weakened state. Looking back, I can see all the red flags I ignored, all the times I convinced myself that her control was just her way of caring. I was curled up on the living room floor when they came home. The cold hardwood pressed against my cheek and I was too exhausted to pull myself back onto the couch. Every breath sent lightning bolts of agony through my spine. I heard the front door open and the clicking of my mother's heels against the floor, followed by my father Mark's heavier footsteps. Relief washed over me. Finally, I would get some relief from this torture. "Mum?" I managed to croak out my voice barely above a whisper. "Did you get my pain medication?" My mother walked past me to the kitchen, the scent of her expensive perfume making my stomach turn. She was wearing a new outfit. I noticed something designer that probably cost more than my last hospital bill copay. My father tossed an empty pharmacy bag onto the coffee table above me. "Here you go," he said, his voice flat and emotionless. I struggled to prop myself up on one elbow, my vision swimming. "What I don't understand, where are the pills?" My mother emerged from the kitchen with a glass of wine, taking a delicate sip before answering. Her face bore that expression I had come to know so well, the one that said I was being dramatic, that I was inconveniencing her with my mere existence. "We returned them," she said, simply examining her manicured nails. "The pharmacy gave us a full refund. Did you know how much those pills cost, Ilara? It's absolutely criminal what they charge for medication these days." The room started to spin. "You returned them, Mum. Those are prescribed to me. I need them. The doctor said missing even one dose could make the pain unbearable." "Don't be so dramatic," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "You can tough it out for a few days. We have something much more important to spend money on right now." That's when Chloe burst through the door, her arms loaded with shopping bags from high-end stores. At 19, my sister was everything I wasn't. Tall, blonde, perfectly healthy, and the absolute centre of my parents' universe. She had been that way since birth, the miracle baby who came after years of my mother's fertility struggles. I was 7 when she was born, and I spent the next 12 years watching my parents' attention shift entirely to her. "Mum, Dad, look what we got," Chloe squealed, dumping her bags on the couch. "The event planner said the champagne tower alone will cost $3,000, but it's going to be so Instagram-worthy. And look at this dress." She pulled out a shimmering silver gown that probably cost more than my monthly medical expenses. "That's my girl," my father said, his face lighting up in a way it never did when he looked at me. "Only the best for your 21st birthday." I tried to sit up fully, my arms shaking with the effort. "Wait, are you saying you returned my medication to pay for Chloe's birthday party?" My mother's face hardened. "Lower your voice, Ilara. And yes, we needed the money. Chloe's birthday is next month and we want it to be perfect. She deserves a celebration that matches her achievements. My medication keeps me alive," I said, tears streaming down my face now. "How can you do this to me?" My father moved toward me, and for a moment I thought he might actually show some compassion. Instead, he grabbed my arm and hauled me to my feet, his fingers digging into my flesh hard enough to leave bruises. "You listen to me," he hissed, his face inches from mine. "Chloe brings pride to this family. She has 500,000 followers on social media. She gets invited to exclusive events. She's dating the son of a state senator. And what do you bring medical bills? Misery. You're a black cloud hanging over this household." He shoved me towards the stairs and I collapsed against the banister, my legs unable to support me. "Get to your room and stay there, and if you ruin Chloe's birthday week with your whining, there will be consequences." Chloe didn't even look at me as I crawled up the stairs, one agonizing step at a time. She was too busy setting up her phone to take selfies with her new dress, practicing her poses and pouts. When I reached the top, I heard her laugh. "Oh my God, Mum, tell her to move. She's totally ruining my aesthetic." I made it to my room and locked the door behind me, then sobbed into my pillow until I had no tears left. The pain was excruciating, like broken glass grinding against my spine with every movement, every breath. But worse than the physical agony was the realization that had been creeping up on me for months, the truth I had been too afraid to face. My family didn't love me. They resented me for being sick. And now they were literally stealing my life-saving medication to throw a party. I lay there in the darkness for hours, alternating between crying and staring at the ceiling. Around midnight, when the pain was so intense I thought I might pass out, I reached for my phone. I scrolled through my contacts, past family members who had stopped calling after my diagnosis, past old friends who had drifted away when I became too sick to go out. My finger hovered over one name, Sarah Mitchell. Sarah was a nurse at the oncology clinic where I received my treatments. Over the past year and a half, she had become more than just a medical professional. She was the one person who seemed to see me as a human being rather than a burden. She had given me her personal number months ago, telling me to call if I ever needed anything, even just to talk. It was late, but I was desperate. I pressed dial. She answered on the third ring, her voice groggy. "Ilara, is everything okay?" The concern in her voice made me start crying again. "Sarah, I'm sorry to call so late. I don't know what to do." "Hey, it's okay. Take your time. What's going on?" Through tears and gasps of pain, I told her everything. About my parents returning my medication, about the party, about how they had been treating me. I expected her to tell me I was overreacting, that families were complicated, that I should try to see their perspective. Instead, I heard anger in her voice. "Ilara, listen to me very carefully. What they did is illegal. You can't just return someone else's prescription medication without their consent. That's not just cruel, it's medical fraud and possibly theft. Do you understand what I'm saying?" I sat up a little straighter despite the pain. I didn't know that. "This goes beyond just being mean, honey. This is abuse. You're a vulnerable adult with a serious medical condition and they're withholding necessary treatment. That's reportable to Adult Protective Services. But more importantly, you have rights. You don't have to live like this." Her words were like a light switching on in a dark room. "What can I do?" "First, can you get your medication refilled? Do you have your prescription information?" "I think so. It should be in my patient portal." "Good. Tomorrow morning, I want you to call the pharmacy directly. Explain that your medication was returned without your consent and you need an emergency refill." I'll call Dr. Patterson first thing and have him send in a new script if needed. But Alara, you need to start documenting everything. Every conversation, every incident. If you want to change your situation, you're going to need evidence. Something shifted in me that night. Sarah's words had planted a seed, and despite my pain and exhaustion, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not just hope that things might get better, but determination to make them better. The next morning, after my family had left the house, my mother to her yoga class and my father to his office with Chloe still asleep after a late night out, I dragged myself downstairs. My whole body screamed in protest, but I forced myself to move. In the kitchen trash can, I found the pharmacy receipt from the returned medication. I took a photo of it with my phone. It showed a refund of $478. I called the pharmacy, and after explaining my situation to a sympathetic pharmacist, she agreed to process an emergency 3-day supply while waiting for a new prescription from my doctor. I had to use my credit card, one I had been saving, for actual emergencies to pay for it. That medicine was my emergency. When I picked up the pills that afternoon, taking an Uber because I was too weak to drive and had no one to ask for a ride, the relief that came about an hour after taking the first dose was indescribable. The pain didn't disappear entirely, but it went from unbearable to manageable. And more importantly, my head cleared enough to think to plan. I started keeping a journal documenting every interaction with my family. Every cruel comment, every time they prioritised Chloe's wants over my needs, every expense they made while claiming they couldn't afford my medical care. I set my phone to record whenever I heard them coming, capturing conversations I knew I'd need later. 2 days after the medication incident, I was sitting at the kitchen table trying to eat some soup when my mother came in with a stack of mail. She tossed a credit card statement in front of me. "This needs to be paid," she said. "It's your card, your responsibility." I looked at the statement. It was indeed my credit card, but the charges were definitely not mine. There were purchases from high-end boutiques, expensive restaurants, a payment to a party planner for a deposit, thousands of dollars I hadn't spent. "Mum, I didn't make any of these charges," I said, my voice shaking. "Of course you didn't, but the card is in your name, so technically it's your debt. We needed it for Chloe's party planning. You'll figure out how to pay it." Before I could respond, she left the room. I stared at the statement, my hands trembling not from weakness this time, but from rage. They were stealing from me. Not just my medication, but actual money, running up debt in my name. I took photos of the entire statement. Then I called my credit card company and reported the charges as fraudulent, explaining that I had been too ill to make these purchases and that family members had access to my card without permission. The representative was professional and sympathetic, initiating a fraud investigation immediately. That same evening, while my mother was out showing Chloe venues for her party, my father called me into his office. I went phone recording in my pocket. "Sit down," he ordered, not looking up from his computer. I sat my spine screaming despite the medication. "Your mother tells me you're making trouble about the credit card charges." "They're fraudulent, Dad. I didn't make those purchases." He finally looked at me, his eyes cold. "You're being selfish and ungrateful. This family has invested so much in you. Do you have any idea how much your medical care has cost us? And now when we need a little help for something important, you throw a tantrum. Important a birthday party is more important than cancer medication." His hand slammed down on the desk, making me jump. "Don't you dare use that tone with me. Everything we do is for this family's reputation. Chloe is going places. She has opportunities. She's not going to waste her life being sick." The implication was clear. I was a waste. I was disposable. "I think I should move out," I heard myself say. The words surprised even me. My father laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "And go where you can barely walk some days. You have no job, no money, no one who would want to deal with you. You need us, Alara. Don't forget that." I left his office with my recording and a new resolve. He was wrong. I didn't need them. I needed to survive, and I was starting to realise that surviving might mean getting as far away from them as possible. Over the next few weeks, I documented everything. I recorded a conversation where my mother explicitly stated she had returned my medication for party money. I screenshot text messages from Chloe to her friends where she bragged about how Mum and Dad love me so much they use my sister's cancer money for my party. She's probably going to die anyway, so what does it matter? That message was the hardest to read. Not just because of the cruelty, but because it confirmed what I had been afraid to acknowledge. They had already written me off. In their minds, I was already gone, and they were just waiting for it to be official so they could stop pretending to care. I contacted Mr. David Chen at Social Services, providing him with all my documentation. He was horrified by what I showed him and immediately began building a case. Sarah connected me with a lawyer who specialised in elder and dependent adult abuse. Yes, at 24 I qualified as a dependent adult due to my medical condition. The lawyer, a fierce woman named Jennifer Torres, reviewed everything I had. This is one of the most clear-cut cases of financial abuse and medical neglect I've seen, she told me. But I have to ask Elara, are you prepared for what comes next? If we pursue this, it's going to get ugly. Your family will fight back. They'll try to paint you as vindictive or mentally unstable. Are you strong enough for that battle? I thought about it for a long moment. Was I strong enough? A month ago, I would have said no. But something had changed. Maybe it was Sarah's support or the documentation I had compiled, or simply the fact that I had hit rock bottom and discovered I could either stay there or climb. Yes, I said. I'm ready. The week before Chloe's birthday party, my family's treatment of me reached new lows. I was explicitly told to stay in my room during all party preparation. When Chloe's best friend Madison came over to help with decorations, I made my way downstairs to get water. Madison, a sweet girl who had always been kind to me, looked shocked at my appearance. Elara, are you okay? She asked, genuine concern in her eyes. I'm fine, I said weakly. Just having trouble getting my medication lately. I saw her expression change, saw the seed of doubt planted. Chloe swooped in, immediately pulling Madison away. Don't worry about her, she's always dramatic about her health. Come on, we need to finalise the Instagram backdrop. But Madison glanced back at me, and I could see her mind working. This girl had hundreds of thousands of followers. She was an influencer in her own right, known for her activism and social justice content. That brief interaction would matter more than I knew at the time. The night of the party, I was ordered to stay in my room. From my window I could see the cars pulling up, could hear the music thumping through the floor. Part of me wanted to just hide to let them have their party and continue being invisible. But I had made a promise to myself, to Sarah, to Mr. Chen and to Jennifer. I was done being invisible. I had prepared everything carefully. I had sent copies of all my documentation to Jennifer, to Mr. Chen and to Sarah. I had coordinated timing with them. Sarah was bringing Mr. Chen and would alert authorities at precisely 9 p.m, right when the party would be at its peak. All I had to do was hold on until then and make sure the truth came out in the most public way possible. At 8:45 there was a sharp knock on my door. Elara, get down here now. My mother's voice was shrill. I took a deep breath, grabbed my phone and opened the door. My mother was there in an elegant cocktail dress, her face flushed with wine and anger. Chloe wants a family photo. Even though you'll probably ruin it, we need you in it for appearances. Make yourself presentable and get downstairs. This was my chance. I had planned for several scenarios, but having them actually invite me down was perfect. I followed my mother downstairs, my legs shaky but my resolve firm. The living room had been transformed into something out of a magazine. Lights sparkled everywhere, champagne flowed freely, and influencers posed at various stations set up throughout the space. A professional photographer was there, and a DJ was set up in the corner with an elaborate sound system. Chloe stood in the centre of it all, in her silver dress radiating confidence and entitlement. The family photo took only a minute. I stood at the edge while my parents flanked Chloe, all of them smiling brilliantly for the camera, while I looked like a ghost in the background. The photographer tried to be nice, suggesting I move closer, but my mother waved him off. This is fine. We can crop if needed. I was about to head back upstairs when my father grabbed my arm. Actually stay down here. At least pretend to be part of this family for one night. I nodded meekly, but inside adrenaline was coursing through my veins. I positioned myself near the DJ booth, watching, waiting. At 8:55 the cake was brought out, a massive 3-tiered creation covered in edible gold leaf and sugar flowers. Everyone gathered around phones, out ready to capture the moment. Speech, speech, someone chanted and others picked it up. Chloe laughed, basking in the attention. Oh my God, okay, I just want to say thank you to my amazing parents who made all this possible. They literally spared no expense to make this night perfect. I have the best family in the world. My mother wiped away a theatrical tear. My father beamed with pride. And something inside me snapped. I walked over to the DJ booth. The DJ was a young guy, busy scrolling through his playlist. "Hey," I said quietly, "can I borrow the mic for a second?" He looked confused, but handed it over. Sure, I guess." I turned it on, and the room's attention slowly shifted to me. Chloe's face went from radiant to annoyed in seconds. "Elara, what are you doing? This is my moment." "I know," I said, my voice amplified through the speakers. "And before you blow out those candles and make your wish, I wanted to share a wish of my own." My mother started moving toward me, but my father held her back, probably not wanting to cause a scene in front of all these people. That was the thing about my family. They cared so much about appearances. "See, my wish is that all of you wonderful people here tonight know exactly what kind of family made this gorgeous party possible." I pulled out my phone, my hands surprisingly steady. Because the money that paid for this champagne tower, for this designer dress, for this entire celebration, didn't come from my parents' successful careers or their savings. I connected my phone to the DJ's system. He looked alarmed but didn't stop me. It came from returning my cancer medication without my knowledge or consent. I hit play. My mother's voice filled the room crystal clear. "We returned it. Turns out we got quite a bit back. Just enough for an extra champagne tower for Chloe's party." Then my father's voice. "You're a black cloud hanging over this household." And finally, most damning of all, Chloe's text messages appeared on the DJ's screen, which was connected to several large monitors around the room for displaying visuals during his set. Mum and Dad love me so much they used my sister's cancer money for my party. She's probably going to die anyway, so what does it matter? You could have heard a pin drop in that room packed with over 100 people. I watched as phone screens lit up, everyone recording now, the influencer instinct to capture drama overriding any sense of decorum. Madison was the first to speak, her voice loud and clear. "Oh my God, Chloe, is this real?" Chloe's face had gone from spray-tanned bronze to ashen white. That's taken out of context." "Really?" I said, my voice stronger now. "Which part is out of context? The part where they returned my prescribed pain medication, or the part where you acknowledged I might die and didn't care?" My mother finally found her voice. "Everyone, please, this is a misunderstanding. Elara has been very ill, and sometimes the medication affects her judgment." I had prepared for this too. I pulled up the pharmacy receipt on the screen. "Here's the refund receipt. $478 for medication prescribed to me for spinal cancer. Return 3 days before it should have run out, leaving me in agony." Then I showed the credit card statement. "And here are the fraudulent charges made on my card, in my name, without my permission. All party expenses." I looked directly at my father. "You told me I was a burden, that I brought nothing but medical bills and misery. You were right about one thing. I have been a burden. But only because you made me carry the weight of your cruelty." Madison had her phone up, live streaming now. "You guys," she said to her camera, her voice shaking, "this is actually insane. We're literally watching someone expose their family for stealing cancer medication to throw a party. I can't even believe this." Her stream was already being shared, comments flooding in. The hashtag that would later trend Justice for Elara was born in that moment. My mother made one more attempt to grab me to take the microphone, but I stepped back. "No, you don't get to silence me anymore. You don't get to pretend I don't exist or that my pain doesn't matter. I exist, I matter, and what you did to me is unforgivable." Chloe burst into tears, but they weren't tears of remorse. She was crying because her perfect party, her perfect image was crumbling in real time in front of hundreds of thousands of viewers as Madison's stream went viral. That's when the doorbell rang. Perfect timing. My father went to answer it, probably hoping it was someone he could use to defuse the situation. Instead, Sarah walked in, followed by Mr. Chen and 2 police officers. "We received a report of vulnerable adult abuse and medical neglect," one of the officers said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We need to speak with Brenda and Mark Thompson." The next hour was a blur. Guests scattered like startled birds, though many stayed to record the aftermath. My parents were questioned, their faces cycling through shock, anger, and finally fear. The police collected my documentation, verified it with Mr. Chen and Sarah. Charges were going to be filed, they said. Multiple charges. Chloe's influencer career imploded that night. By the time the party was officially over, her follower count was dropping by thousands per minute. Brands were pulling sponsorships. Her name was trending, but not in the way she had always dreamed. The hashtags were damning. Birthday from hell, cancer medication scandal, toxic family. I spent that night in a hotel paid for by Sarah, who refused to let me stay in that house another second. The next morning, I woke up to find that Madison's video had been viewed over 10 million times. News outlets were picking it up. And somehow, in the midst of all that chaos, a GoFundMe page had been started in my name by someone I didn't even know, just someone who had seen Madison's stream and wanted to help. Within a week, it had raised over $500,000. People from all over the country, even internationally, were contributing, sharing their own stories of family betrayal and medical struggles. The money meant I could afford the best treatment at a leading cancer centre. It meant I could afford my own apartment one with proper accessibility features. It meant for the first time in years I could breathe. The legal proceedings took months. My parents were charged with financial elder abuse, medical neglect and fraud. They eventually pleaded guilty to reduced charges, receiving probation, and being ordered to pay restitution. The house I had grown up in was sold to cover legal fees and the money they owed me. Chloe, who was not charged criminally, became a cautionary tale about the dangers of influencer culture and family entitlement. But the best part, the part that matters most, happened slowly over the months that followed. I found an apartment in a building with other young adults dealing with chronic illnesses. We formed our own little support community. I started seeing a therapist who specialised in family trauma. I learnt that setting boundaries wasn't cruel, it was necessary. I learnt that my worth wasn't determined by my ability to make other people comfortable with my existence. Sarah became a regular visitor eventually, one of my closest friends. Madison and I developed an unexpected friendship, and together we started a social media campaign about medical equity and family abuse awareness. I used my new platform not for revenge, but for education, sharing resources for others in similar situations. My parents tried to reach out several times, always with excuses, justifications, or attempts to manipulate me back into their lives. Each time I said no, not out of hatred, but out of self-preservation. Some relationships are so toxic that the only healthy option is to walk away entirely. Chloe sent one message about 6 months after that night. It was long rambling and mostly consisted of explaining how her life had been ruined and asking if I was happy now. I never responded. Her happiness or unhappiness wasn't my responsibility. Mine was. Sitting here now, a year and a half after that party, in my sunny apartment that I chose that I pay for, with money donated by strangers who cared more about my well-being than my own family ever did, I can honestly say I'm not the same person I was. The cancer is still there, the treatment is ongoing, some days the pain is still unbearable, but I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not waiting for permission to exist, to matter, to take up space. I learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself, even when everything in your conditioning tells you that's selfish. It's not selfish, it's survival. The people who were supposed to love me most in this world tried to erase me while I was still breathing. Instead, I found love and support from strangers, from a nurse who saw me as a person, rather than a patient, from a young woman with a phone camera who believed my truth was worth sharing, and most importantly, from myself. I look at that version of me who was curled up on the floor begging for medication, accepting cruelty as if it was normal, and I want to tell her what I know now. You don't have to shrink yourself to fit into spaces that weren't made for you. You don't have to earn the basic decency of being treated like a human being. And when people show you who they are, when they demonstrate again and again that your pain means nothing to them, believing them isn't giving up, it's waking up. Let me ask you something. Right now, are you sacrificing your own happiness to keep someone else comfortable? Are you setting yourself on fire to keep others warm if the people who should love you most are the ones hurting you most? That's not family. That's captivity. I need you to know something. If you're reading this from a dark place, if you're the one lying on that floor right now thinking you have no choice, you do. You always do. It might not feel like it, but your voice matters. Your pain is real. And you don't have to earn the right to be treated like a human being. Drop a comment below, tell me your story, or just tell me you're here. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is admit we're not okay. And you never know who else needs to hear that they're not alone. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you think about your own boundaries and relationships, please hit that like button and subscribe. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is share our truths and remind each other that we're not alone in the darkness. Because the only way out is through, and it's so much easier when we walk that path together. Your voice matters, your pain matters, and you deserve better than what you're settling for. Don't wait until you're at a breaking point to believe that. Trust me, I learned that lesson the hard way, but at least I learned it while I could still do something about it. Make sure you do too.